Thank you, Deborah Lask. I'm going to record your voice. I don't think I could do that, but that would be wonderful. Welcome to all of you who are joining us in the land of the X's, of the ones and zeros, by the miracle of replay. Scott Ryder is with us, I believe, behind that video of his, and David Balto with the D as well. Judy Young, I think, is sitting in the dark. I did see her pop up there for a second, and as my mother used to say, "Oh, so I'll sit in the dark." Scott, I'm having video issues. All righty. We welcome you in either case. All righty. So let us continue the beginning, and I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can chant together the words of the 13 attributes. That's not what, that's a coming attraction. Wait a second, that's not what I want. Stop share. Ahaha. There we go, Rami. Woohoo. All right, here we go. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanu, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Emet. Notzer chesed lalafim, nosei avon v'fesha, v'chata v'nahake, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. Notzer chesed lalafim, nosei avon v'fesha, v'chata Tenake, ay, 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 did it, ay, 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 did it, ay, 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 Emet, or as my grandmother used to say, Emes. Right? Emes. So I need somebody to play with me here, turning to page 87, the first page. Perhaps one of the men could volunteer, because I think that, these are two men's voices in the movie. And so I'm going to give you the role, the Jack Nicholson role of Jessup. All right. So who wants to play Jack Nicholson and read the Jack Nicholson part? All right, Stephen. All right, who wants to play Kathy? Kathy could be anybody, a man, woman. Okay, Jay, you're Kathy. All righty, here we go. Everybody get open to the page. So I'm going to read the paragraph up before it, and then let's start our very short play. One of the most remarkable lines in modern cinema comes from Adam Sorkin's 1992 film A Few Good Men, starring Jack Nicholson as Colonel Nathan Jessup and Tom Cruise as Lieutenant Daniel Kaffee. During a heated courtroom exchange, Jessup says to Kaffee,
"You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to them.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth."
Scene.
Let's give it. Scene. Wow. We have to do this more often.
I love that movie.
I didn't ask for a review. You can't review it if you're in the movie, Stevie. All right, Colonel Jessup is right. We can't handle the truth. And then Reb Rami goes on for an entire chapter, helping us to understand what he understands about that and what he means when he says that. Now, I want to take a few moments here to unpack the word emet, or like I said, emes, right, as a grandparents, or you still get that in Brooklyn and the yeshiva speaking world, right? So I'm going to share my screen with you one more time. Alrighty. So how do we spell emet? So that's the word on top of the screen. Somebody, what? How's it spelled?
Aleph Mem Tet.
Aleph Mem Tet. Aleph Mem Taf, not Tet.
Tough, I mean tough.
Aleph Mem Taf, exactly. So the Taf and the Tat, they make that same
Right.
sound. So emet. Alrighty. we we're going to have a little fun for a second and just take a look at some sources on this word. Now, this letter, the tough there, should also be in green, because what I'm trying to do here is to point out that our Torah begins with the words Bereshit bara Elohim. And if you look at the last letter of each of the first three words, you get the letters that make up the word Emet. Aleph at the end of the word bara, right? Mem at the end of Elohim, and Bereshit ends with a taf. So there you have Emet. Now, why is this a little bit more than three-card Monty? Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Psishke cites the Talmudic statement, the seal of God is Emet, is truth, and comments that it's customary for an author to place his name in the opening of his book. Well, isn't that interesting? Because what do we find at the very end of creation? Vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz, and that whole paragraph that we sing on Friday night that begins the Kiddush ends with Asher bara Elohim la'asot. And then we say Savri, and then the blessing over wine. Okay? Asher bara Elohim la'asot is the end of the creation psukim, verses. And so what do we have at the end of those verses? Aha, you can guess it. Bara, we have your Aleph, Elohim, we have Mem, and La'asot, we have the Taf. So not only do we have the seal, the author kind of hiding the his or her, or their, actually, maybe better spoken, name inside the book of creation. Simcha Bunim goes on to say, God placed God's name, Emet, truth, in the opening chapter of Torah. Emet thus envelops all of creation, a testimony to God as creator. So let's look a little closer at the word.
Mark?
Yes,
So
go ahead.
if you scroll back, is it by chance or design that at the closure it actually comes out Emet? You know, the three words spell Emet at the end, spell Emet in order, where in the first Bereshit bara, it's jumbled up.
Is it by design?
Is it by design or by chance?
Well, you're going to have to speak to the Holy Blessed One.
Okay, I will tonight.
Okay, right before
I'll get you the answer, Shabbat.
Good, please get back to me on that. But if I were a real rabbi, I would say there's no mistakes in Torah, and that divinity leaves us breadcrumbs, right? And that we are left to have to decipher the code, right? Now, I've never read the Da Vinci Code, but I suspect it's something like that. All right, moving on. Emet. Emet, right here, with these three letters that spell the word truth, are made up of the first Aleph, the middle Mem, and the last Taf, letters of the Aleph Bet. That points to stability. How? Because it encompasses the Ganze Megillah, right? Emet takes care of the entire Aleph Bet, is included in there. And if you look, and I find this really interesting, Emet, all of the letters in Emet have wide bases to them. And so truth is a stable commodity, right? When you arrive at the truth, you know where you are standing. When we discover something that's true about ourselves, and that a foundational truth, we can live our lives in such a way that feels like we're living in alignment. However, things can become unstable when we lean to one or the other side. And if we lean to the backside of the Aleph Bet, we have the last three letters, kuf, shin, resh, which spells the word sheker, a lie. And look at the bases of the word sheker. They're round bases. Round bases are going to be wobbly, right? It cannot stand. A lie cannot stand. We are taught that falsehood distances oneself from God, distances oneself from divinity. So whether that is in our dealings with other people or in living a life that is distant from our true nature, and of course, understanding and realizing that true nature is what our journey is all about, right? Give me just 1 second. Okay. This Emet is known as the seal. I happen to like Holy Blessed One, spells out HBO. One last thing. Baruch Dayan Emet. Someone, what does it mean? Baruch Dayan Emet. What does it mean?
Praise the true judge, or the judge of truth, or something.
Exactly. It could be looked at, praise the true judge is the way it's usually unpacked. So Baruch is blessed, or blessed is the true judge. Dayan is a judge in a court of law. And Emet, it means true, right? So it can mean the judge of truth or the true judge, all right? When do we say, when is it traditional to use those words?
When you hear that someone died.
Exactly. So when we hear of the death of someone, traditionally we say Baruch Dayan Emet. My friend and colleague, Rabbi Dan Goldblatt. Does anybody know Dan? Mary Rita. Yeah. Dan likes to say Baruch Dayan Harachmana. Baruch Harachman, I'm sorry. Blessed is the merciful one. Because for some of us, it strikes us as our 21st century sensitivity reacts badly to the God of truth saying, you're in, you're out. That maybe the idea of that God is the, we're the marionettes and God is, playing with the strings above, and which is another piece of difficult theology around Yamim Noraim, the high holidays. So in order to avoid that, he likes to say, "Blessed is the compassionate one, the merciful one, Rahmana." But traditionally, Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed is the true judge, and if we might understand that now a little bit differently if we see the word emet as encompassing all, right? In much the way that the prophet Isaiah says God is the Borei Yom V'Layla, Uvarei et HaChoshech, Uvarei et HaRa, right? That God creates everything, including the Ra, evil or bad. But the rabbi substitutes that with Hakol, which in some way relates for me to the word Emet, because Emet encompasses everything. Alrighty, so that just a little bit, I thought you'd enjoy. This is a short teaching on the word Emet, just to ground us in Reb Rami's chapter. Deborah.
Well, I've heard another teaching about the word Emet, and that is that starts with the first letter of the alphabet, it ends with the last one, and the mem is the middle of the alphabet. And so the truth has two extremes, but may have two extremes, but the real truth is probably right in the middle.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, there are a lot of teachings on the word. So thank you for adding that to our knowledge base this evening. Beautiful. Alrighty. So I am so tempted to repeat that wonderful opening that we had, because Jay and Steve, you're going to have to win some kind of award for that. But let's turn to Reb Rami's understanding of how this all works for us on page 89. Unless anyone has any comments or reflections on the teaching from the Gospel of Mark on the preceding page 88 and how that works in our lives and what Jesus was actually saying and what people thought he was saying. If not, we're going to start on page 89. Okay. We are all weighed down by the guilt we feel over the sins we have committed. We are paralyzed by the story of our paralysis. We need a new story. Someone give us just a quick understanding of what he means when he says the guilt, being weighed down by the guilt of our sins. And if we go back to that teaching that I had before, is that telling a lie distances ourselves from God. So I think that's at play here in what Reb Rami is saying. Anybody? Guilt of sins weighing us down. What does a sin actually do? How does that play upon our neshamot, on our souls? Bruce, go ahead.
I'm wondering if it shrinks us in some fashion, makes us small in our own eyes.
Yeah, beautiful. So what I'm hearing with an and to what you just offered is that telling a lie, for instance, which, by the way, we know that the rabbis understand that it is okay to lie in certain circumstances, especially when it's for the sake of another person, a person's feelings, or to protect another person. But what's resonating me, Bruce, and what you're saying here is that a sin takes us back to moachin de katnut, which is underscoring all of Rami's teaching into narrow-mindedness, as opposed to expanded consciousness. So it takes us into that place where ego reigns, R-E-I-G-N-S. And I'm making that pun because we're going to get to a different spelling of rain in a little while. So yes, that could, I think we're on the right track, Bruce, in that a sin distances us from divinity, in that it creates a space and a greater distance, but a feeling of outside, being outside of the conversation, that and outside of the relationship between us and divinity. Alrighty, so that and the word sin, I mean, what does it mean? We can come back to that. Hate, is like when we miss the mark and we try our best. But I look at it too as schmutz on the soul. As that it clouds, it creates a difficulty to see out the clear window. Moshe, it said, sees and has God, sees divinity to an aspaklaria, that it's a clear mirror. So there's no schmutz on his window. But we all have a little schmutz on our window, and we're constantly putting the windshield wipers on, right? As we try to align ourselves with divinity and to wipe away really what is the cost of living. Mary Rita.
So it's like kind of taking both of those, your comment and Bruce, I think sin, like in the small mind and narrowness, not only in the way I would look at myself, but the way I would also look at others. And so not only does it kind of put like the schmutz between me and divinity, it puts the schmutz between me and other people, and we're called to love others, as we love ourselves. So it breaks connection in all directions, in all ways.
Right. And v'ahavta riacha kamocha, There's love at the center of it all. And if I see you in that way, if I see you as the Shaviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid, I'm seeing God in you.
Mhm.
But I can't with all of that schmutz, as you say, or as you tried to say anyway. Sorry, I'm just, yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
I also feel it in a different way, and that it drains some energy. Like you can't come in your full energy, because the idea that the negativity of the sin is kind of like, to me, it's kind of like this bass note that keeps playing and pulling me down.
Hmm.
And so we can't come forward in our whole self as
Right.
a result of it.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I just replaced the battery in my iPhone, and it's not as good as when it was new, but it's better than it was when it kept on draining. And so if I have to constantly be worrying about the battery, I'm not going to get full function from the machine. And if we look at ourselves as, in our physical lives, as, we need food, we also need spirit. There's both sides of it in order to see clearly out this window, and for me to see you, you to see me. Dan.
So what Deborah was just saying and what the others have said, to me, it feels like when you lie, you are actually breaking a part of yourself off, because now you have to pay attention to what that lie said, and that's not really me. I guess it sort of relates to being two-faced, and it's, the schmutz idea. I'm struggling with a little bit, but the idea that now with the lie, you have another part that you have to play with and protect, and it keeps you from, like Deborah was saying, being real and whole. You're no longer whole. You have a part breaking off.
For sure. Thank you, Dan. Maybe I can help with that image of the schmutz, in that the light has trouble getting in and out, so that our neshamot, our souls, are clouded, and we have an inability to see out and to see in as well. Yeah, Jay.
Well, I was reminded, it's really about a turning away from a separation, putting a space between you and the Lord, or you and other people. So, and from yourself as well. It's definitely that kind of separation.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to put it. Somebody else. Hi, Judy. Welcome. Stephen.
Yeah, I was thinking of what Dan said, and I observed that a lot when I was doing investigations in my job, whether it was into grievances or issues between employees and management. There'd be a story, and then all of a sudden you'd see it unravel, and the person try to build upon it to try to keep their truth going. And they kept just digging their ditch deeper, so to say, in the investigation. It was, and I observed that more than once in 23 years.
Yeah, for sure. For those of you who've just joined us, as you see, Reb Rami is not with us tonight. He will be with us next week. Okay. So in the middle of the page, this, I think, is what the Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield means when he writes, "The pains of our past cannot be released until we touch them with healing and forgiveness." And then at the bottom of the page, the problem is that you cannot grasp it directly. You are so locked into paralyzing stories, you cannot think otherwise. This is our paralysis. And then we're paralyzed on page 90, in the middle paragraph, the next to last line. The truth is that we don't know what the truth is. This is the beginning of wisdom. Now, if you look in the book of Proverbs, you're going to find something a little bit different. It's going to say Reshit Chochma Yira. I don't know if that's the way it goes. Reshit Chochma Yira. The beginning of wisdom is fear, Yira, fear. But I don't remember if whether it was in this class or another class where I showed the video of Reb Zalman of blessed memory talking about Yira and Pachad and the difference in the Hebrew words for fear. Did we talk about it here, Scott? And a couple of people are nodding their heads yet, but just as a review of that, Yira also includes the words, the same shoresh as to see, right? And so to the beginning of wisdom is to see and be seen. In other words, to see clearly, and to it's often unpacked as yira, as wonder as well. Okay, and we can't really embrace wonder in all of its enormous capacity without letting go of our story, which becomes more laden as we grow older. So we all know how young children they relate to the world with a lot more magic than we do. Although for some of us, we are so blessed to still be able to play and relate to other people in a childlike manner, not childish, we hope, but in a childlike manner. So perhaps what that's saying from Proverbs is the beginning of wisdom is to look at the world in a childlike manner, or in Buddhist practice, with beginner's mind. Alrighty, being able to see the world without being laden down with the story that we've lived up until this point, with all of its sorrows and all of its happiness, right, and all the things that box us in from time to time with habitual behavior. All right. Middle of page 90. And I wrote I put an arrow, I said, this is the key. Loving kindness doesn't come from knowing what is what, but from knowing that you don't know what is what. And for those of you who don't know this book, and to answer to your question, Bruce, I would love to, maybe this will be the next book that we unpack. It's Estelle Frankel's The Wisdom of Not Knowing, which is fabulous. Estelle actually is my mashpia. She's my spiritual director. And I had read 2 of her books before that ever happened, which is about a year ago now. But she digs in to this idea that the only time that we're on solid ground is when we know that we don't know, which in a way is kind of like, I don't know, what would you call that? It's kind of like a koan in a way.
Rumsfeldian.
What is it?
Rumsfeldian.
Rumsfeldian?
Rumsfeldian.
Rumsfeldian. Why is it Rumsfeldian?
Oh, the unknown unknowns.
Okay, other people know what you're talking about. I don't, so that went right over my head. You'll
Donald
tell me
Rumsfeld.
later.
He made that political thing about we know what we know, we don't know what we don't know, and then we also don't know what we don't know.
Did Donald Rumsfeld say that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There are known knowns, unknown known. Yeah.
Well, let this be the first time that Donald Rumsfeld's name came up in a discussion of Rami's book. Not knowing rather than knowing is the key to loving kindness. Not knowing leads to genuine humility, and humility is the prerequisite for loving kindness. Absolutely love that idea. And humility, of course, not being looked at as a weakness, but here, of course, but as a strength, as knowing who we are, of knowing when to say, I don't know. And I don't know about you, but I find life a lot easier since I discovered this for myself. To be able to truthfully to say, I don't know. I don't know. And embrace that. So I'm going back a little bit on page 89. We need a new story. And he says here too about not knowing be the key to loving kindness. Think about love as a key. And I don't know if you're all aware that the song that we sing in place, right before the Shema, every Shabbat morning, you are loved by an unending love. Reb Rami wrote those lyrics. He wrote that. That was a poem before it ever was a song, which Rabbi Shir Yaakov put to music, right? And if we lived our lives knowing, not knowing and embracing that we are loved by a love that's unending, where would we be? Where would that leave us? What kind of lives would we live? And would be able to converse with our neighbors in ways that we really yearn to. So looking at the next page, 91, as a gardener, I was turned on about this whole rabbinic midrash. We are told in the second story that the task of humanity is to work the soil. The soil to which Torah is referring is not the earth in general, which is doing quite well without human help, according to the first telling of the creation story, but rather the soil that becomes humanity. And then ending the end, the soil we are to till then is the soil of self. To till it means to turn it over, to break up the hard and dry patches and let in fresh air and light. Okay, my friends, I'm going to stop here for a moment for any questions or comments. And then I'm going to open up this space to do something that we haven't done together here, which is an extended guided meditation. Jay, you were there this afternoon too. Maybe you could be able to hear a little bit better than you did on your rooftop. But when I read this, I immediately thought of Tara Brach, and I know that many of you are familiar with Tara's work and insight meditation. And the idea that she has came up with an acronym that she calls RAIN, R-A-I-N. Okay. And I'm going to screen share here with you a second again. And then for purposes of coming away tonight with a useful tool, right? I like to think that our gatherings on Wednesday nights expand our knowledge base, expand our consciousness. But I often wonder if anything we do together and these really deep conversations that we have lead to something that you can use. Right? And so that's my intention tonight, that we all come away with something that we can use. So I'm going to share this with you before we actually are led in a 20-minute guided meditation by Tara Brach herself. So I just mentioned RAIN. And this practice she calls a practice of radical compassion. And why am I thinking of it now? Because this is what Rami has just talked about. In order to turn the soil over and over and break it up, in order to let fresh air and light in, we need to be able to look at our lives with compassion, right? And with Rahmanis, there's that word again, Rahmaniut, right? And to look at the deeply held opinions that we mistake for our truth. So I think that this practice helps to loosen the earth a little bit and bring compassion to things that we identify in ourselves that we've been schlepping along with us, either from our childhood, young adulthood, or maybe even last week. So RAIN, what does it stand for? The R is to recognize what is going on, which basically leads into the second letter, allow the experience to be there just as it is. So, and I can send this to this PDF if you would like. So what Tara is talking about here is going into a meditation and allowing something that is awaiting to be unpacked, that it is perhaps demanding your attention, and then allowing it to be there without judgment. So recognizing means consciously acknowledging in any given moment the thought, feelings, and behaviors that are affecting you. This can be done with a simple mental whisper, noting what you are most aware of. And I'm certainly not insisting that you need to say it out loud, but some people find that helpful. And obviously you're going to be muted, so it will be in the privacy and the confidentiality of your own room. Then the A, allow the experience to be there just as it is. In other words, we're not going to try to fix anything, nor avoid anything that comes up. Whatever comes up, just going to allow it to be there. We're going to see it, right? Without saying it's good or bad, it is what it is. And then allowing creates a pause that makes it possible to deepen attention. And then we bring our intention, the I in RAIN, to investigate with interest and care. In Hebrew, we might say mazeh. What is this, right? To take a look at what is this isness? What is this moment? What is this that is calling out to us that needs to be investigated more fully? And she's going to talk. She's going to go over this as well. But I think it's helpful for those of you who haven't used this in the past to hear it from me and then to hear it from her as well. So you might ask yourself, what most wants attention? How am I experiencing this in my body? What am I believing? What does this vulnerable place want from me, and what does it most need? So in some ways, what she is inviting us into is a four-world investigation. How my body's reacting to it, what's the emotions behind it, what are the thoughts that go through my head? In other words, what am I believing about what I am looking at? What is the story that is wrapped around this? And then finally, nurture with self-compassion is the N in RAIN. Self-compassion begins to naturally arise in the moments that you recognize you are suffering. It comes into fullness as you intentionally nurture your inner life with self-care. So I'm not going to go on because I said she is going to help us in her guidance that she's going to offer. If during this time, which is going to be a tiny bit less than 20 minutes, you want to turn off your video, please, I feel free to do that. Any questions? Okay. So you're going to hear a beginning. It will begin with a flute playing. And then she's going to lead us into a short beginning of breathing into presence. And so have a safe journey and allow whatever comes up to be recognized, to give it its due attention. And then allow yourself to investigate it with honesty and to send love and compassion in the direction that it most needs.
This is a meditation using the acronym RAIN: recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture, bringing mindfulness and compassion to an area of difficulty in our life. So I invite you to begin by paying attention to the movement of the breath and sensing the possibility of relaxing with the breath. You might sense the in-breath being like a balloon that's inflating, just filling yourself, receiving healing, prana, life. And the out-breath, a releasing, letting go. As you breathe, you might sense that there are areas in your body that are wanting to let go, that naturally can release right now. Perhaps letting go in the shoulders, softening the hands, relaxing the belly, relaxing the heart. And continuing to relax with the movement of the breath. The mind drifts with thoughts, and you notice that, just relaxing open. Let your senses be awake, and gently landing, resting again with the breath. It's from this wakeful presence that you can scan your life now and sense if there's a place of difficulty that's bringing up challenging emotions. Maybe an illness or something going on in a relationship, conflict, an addictive behavior, something going on at work that is triggering feelings of fear, or hurt, or shame, sadness. Bringing to mind a situation that in some way brings up reactive emotion that you'd like to find more balance in the midst of. It won't serve so well to bring up a situation if it feels like it evokes trauma. So picking something that where there's a charged reaction, but not something that feels overwhelming. And let yourself bring to mind the situation that really exemplifies where this gets triggered. It might be a situation with somebody else where you're seeing what their face looks like and the words they're speaking right at the moment where you get triggered. Or it might be a situation where you're alone, but in some way behaving in an addictive way that is upsetting to you, sensing the room you're in. But like watching a movie, go to the frame where you feel most emotionally reactive. Allowing yourself to freeze the frame. Sense what's triggering you. And we begin RAIN. The R of RAIN is to recognize. By recognizing whatever's most predominant that's going on inside you. Might be you're feeling anger or hurt, or maybe you feel totally frozen with some sort of a stuck in tension, unable to do anything, filled with anxiety. Just naming to yourself whatever it is you're most aware of. And recognize goes with allow, the A of RAIN, which is just to let it be there right now. With allow, we pause and we make space for what's here. Allow doesn't mean you like it. It means that you're acknowledging that this is the life of the moment. You're letting it be there. By allowing, you're able to then begin to deepen your attention. The I of RAIN is investigate. You might begin by asking what most wants attention. What's the most difficult part of this? With investigate, you're feeling into your body, feeling into the place of failure or shame or judgment or dislike or fear. It can sometimes help to ask yourself, well, what am I believing when this is happening? Am I believing that somebody feels like that I'm not special? Or do I feel or believe that I'm not understood? That I'm invisible? That I'm a failure? That I'm unlovable? Sense if there's a belief going on. Do I believe that I'm disrespected? But most important, come into the body and sense how whatever you're believing is felt in the body. Pay attention to your throat, your heart, your belly. What emotion might be there? What's the felt sense? Is there a feeling of clench or rawness or aching, squeezed? You can investigate more fully if you assume the facial expression of what you're feeling. And don't be inhibited. Go ahead and just let your face take on the expression of whatever is really being triggered. And you can even change your body posture. You may end up feeling like you're going to raise or hunch your shoulders. Maybe your hands want to come into fists, whatever it is. But allow your body and your face to express what might be going on inside you. That's a part of investigating and fully contacting the experience. What do you notice? Where do you feel most vulnerable in your body? Where does vulnerability live right now? And if that vulnerable place in you could communicate, what would it want you to know? Maybe there's words, maybe there's a stronger feeling. or an image. The investigate begins to move towards nurturing. When you ask that vulnerable place, how do you want me to be with you? You might ask, what does this place most need right now? What does it most need? Does it want to trust something or to feel something in particular, or to know something? Asking, investigating, and begin to sense now the possibility of responding to this place inside you from the most loving and wise part of you. And as a way of getting in touch with that, you might take a few full breaths and maybe find yourself adjusting your posture a little, even assuming the facial expression that most allows you to inhabit your high self, or what some people call their future self, who we're really evolving into, the most awakened heart. But staying in contact with the vulnerability, listening, feeling. What does this place most need? Calling on your wisdom and your love now. Sense that you can offer to this vulnerability. You can nurture this vulnerability by offering what's needed. You might begin by sensing where it lives in your body and gently bringing a hand perhaps to your heart or your belly, as if your most wise and loving part of your being could offer a tender touch, letting energy start flowing into the place of vulnerability. It's like, if you haven't done this before, if you put your hand on your heart and vary the touch until it feels tender, that's the beginning of a radical shift where we start to regard with compassion our inner life. What words or message does this part most need to hear? And can you offer that? It might be something as simple as, I'm sorry and I love you. Or I care about this suffering. Or I'm not leaving. You belong. You're a part of this life. If it feels difficult to offer compassion from your own high self, you might invoke or invite some being that represents compassion and love. Just call on that being. Could be a person, teacher, healer that you know, someone living or dead, a relative, a child. Could be the Buddha or Jesus or Great Mother. It could be the love and the wisdom that fills this universe, and let it flow through your hands and flow into your heart and into where the vulnerability lives. Rumi says, don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. Explore what it means to really let in love, let in healing. Being the holder and the held. We follow, rain, recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture with what's called after the rain, some moments of resting in the heart space and presence that's here. Just relax and let it fill you. So you can just dissolve into it. Be aware of the quality of presence that's here. What's it like? What's the sense of your own being, of who you are right now? How has this shifted from when you began the meditation? Sensing the heart space that's here and trusting this is more the truth of who you are than any story you could ever tell about yourself. Trusting in and resting in the presence that is your true home.
And I invite you to slowly and gently return to this space. I hope you found that meaningful and useful. And I'm going to take a screenshot of everybody.